Well, Jordan Westburg and Cedric Mullins are back off the injured list, but they couldn't quite help the Orioles beat the Tigers on Tuesday night. I'll recap the loss and discuss the roster moves coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Wednesday, June 11th, 2025, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap the Orioles' 5-3 loss to the Detroit Tigers on Tuesday night, talk about some things to watch from that game, including a kind of a rough start from Cade Povich and a good moment for Gunnar Henderson and for Jordan Westburg, who was activated off the injured list along with Cedric Mullins before Tuesday's game. We'll talk about how the two of them fit back into the lineup and why the Orioles made the roster moves they did and how this lineup will kind of shake up as they are maybe healthier than they've ever been at any point in this 2025 season. But that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So the Orioles, after kind of a disappointing series loss to the A's, but in general had a 4-2 road trip. They had won 7 of their last 9. They got the off day on Monday coming back from Sacramento, and they get greeted by the best team in the American League, the 43-24 Detroit Tigers, coming into town for a 3-game set, and the Orioles dropped game 1. Final score, Tigers 5, Orioles 3 on Tuesday night. And let's start with what went right from Tuesday night's game. Another loss for the Orioles that sent them to 26-39 on the season. But what went right is that Gunnar Henderson had an RBI single off a lefty. We haven't seen that a lot this year. Brant Herter, the very deceptive kind of sidearm left-hander, multi-inning reliever for the Tigers, started this game as the opener for Detroit. He's done that a couple of times this year, and he almost made it through 3 scoreless innings as the opening pitcher, but the Orioles had other plans in the 3rd inning. Jackson Holliday roped a single off him up the middle and then stole second in that 3rd inning. And Jackson is still having his struggles against lefties this year, but he's a little bit better. And he did have a 2-hit game, had a double off a righty in the 8th inning of this one as well. But Gunnar Henderson had the big swing. It was in an absolute battle with Herter, who knew Gunnar was his final batter he was going to face. A 10-pitch AB ends up with a sinker in the middle of the plate. Gunnar just lashes it into right center field for an RBI single, scoring Holliday and tying the game at 1 in the bottom of the 3rd inning. And it can seem like kind of a harmless RBI single early in a loss. And you're like, Connor, why are you focusing so much on that swing? Well, it's something Gunnar Henderson hasn't done a lot of this year. Really, the reason why Gunnar was an MVP candidate last season is because of how well he hit lefties. Remember, Gunnar was great against righties in 2023, but he struggled against lefties in his first full season. In 2024, he was almost just as good against left-handers. He dominated them, and that is why he was an MVP. You can't have platoon splits and be an MVP-type player. That just does not happen. But this year, it has swung the other direction. Coming into Tuesday night's game, Gunnar Henderson was hitting just 141 with a 31% strikeout rate against left-handed pitching this season. Just a complete 180 from what he did last year. And specifically in big spots against lefties, most of those had been, you'd figure, late in games against tough lefty relievers. Henderson came into Tuesday just 1 for 16 with runners in scoring position when facing a left-handed pitcher. So that RBI single he got was just his 2nd hit off a lefty with a runner in scoring position this year. I told you it was something rare. To only have 2 of those in June just tells you how much he has struggled. So really good to see him hit a ball hard, get a single, battle there, right? Go through a foul off pitch after pitch, fastball after fastball, a 10-pitch AB, and end it with an RBI single to tie the game. I know it's Gunnar. He's the best Orioles player. He's one of the guys I shouldn't really be worrying about with all the other struggles this team is having, but I think a good positive sign for Henderson on Tuesday night. Now, what went wrong was Cade Povich's ability to finish an inning in this one. Povich started out strong. He gave up a triple and a sac fly, scored the Tigers' first run in the top of the 2nd inning. But, it was a 1-1 game heading into the 4th. Povich was pitching well. He was getting some swing and miss. His fastball was looking good. He got 11 whiffs total, 6 on the four-seamer. It's had some good ride. His changeup had a little more vertical break than usual, got 3 swings and misses on that one. And as usual for Povich, the stuff was there, but he just could not finish innings. Comes out there in the fourth, 1-1 game, retires the first 2 batters, and then allows a double to Wencel Perez, an RBI single to Javi Baez, and it's 2-1. Now he gets out of the inning, right? And he's had his troubles this year with letting innings balloon into those big innings. He kept it at 1. He gets out of it. It's a 2-1 game. He goes back out there in the fifth. Orioles still trailing 2-1. Once again, gets the first 2 hitters out in the 5th inning, and then it just all goes away. Double, RBI single, 2-run homer, and it's immediately 5-1. Then he allows a triple to the next batter, and he's out of the game. Could not even finish the 5th as the Orioles went to the bullpen to bring in Seranthony Dominguez. And he just continues to have this issue where he is unable to limit damage. He allows too many big innings. He allows too many innings to become big innings. And even with 2 outs, and getting that 3rd out was the big issue on Tuesday night. And this isn't as in-depth analysis as I usually do for the Orioles starting pitchers, but just that's the issue right here. There's obviously something that changes for Cade Povich when he has runners on base. When he's facing bases empty this year, opponents are hitting just 239. That's a pretty good number. But as soon as anybody gets on base, whether he walks them, they get a hit, whatever it may be, opponents are hitting 320 against Povich with runners on base. So I don't know if it's something mechanical when he pitches out of the stretch with runners on versus out of the windup with nobody on, where he's struggling out of the stretch to kind of get to his command, get to his best stuff, whatever it may be. I'm really not sure what the fix is for this. And again, Povich is going through his first full big league season. He's going to continue to grow and get better, you would think. And this is a hurdle he's going to have to get over. But the O's are going to have to find something here. Because again, the stuff is there for Povich. But if he wants to take it to the next level where he can finish this season with us saying, yeah, pencil in Povich, the 2026 Orioles rotation. I think that should be his goal. And that's the Orioles' goal, that they feel that good about Povich at the end of this year. For that feeling to come up, he's going to have to pull this together. The ability to still pitch well with runners on base, finish these innings, finish these at-bats. He's a young pitcher, I get it, but that is what he is struggling with right now. And that is allowing these starts where he generally looks good to balloon into ones that are 4 2/3, 5 runs, 9 hits, 6 Ks, a walk, and a homer on 98 pitches, which is what Povich gave us on Tuesday night. And the shout out for Tuesday's game, well, the shout out goes to the Orioles bullpen again. Dominguez came in there with 2 outs in the 5th, finished the inning, and then put up a 0 in the 6th. Yennier Cano, after a leadoff single in the first pitch, struck out the side in the 7th. His stuff was looking pretty nasty. And then Scott Blewett just loves to pitch in an Oriole uniform, right? They bring him back off waivers over the weekend. He gives him an inning and 2/3 scoreless, and then he comes back out there, 2 scoreless innings in the 8th and the 9th to keep it a 5-1 game at that point. Pretty good stuff, again, from Blewett, who has been just awesome in his 4 appearances as an Oriole this year, now in his 2nd stint with Baltimore. And Blewett did give up some hard contact, but, you'll take the luck of 2 scoreless innings from your long guy out of the bullpen to save the rest of the pen. And this bullpen, and this has been some of the reason why, even with the loss, the Orioles are 7-3 in their last 10 games. They're overall playing much, much better baseball over the past couple of weeks. The bullpen finally settling in with all the talent we knew they had coming into the year, right? This Oriole bullpen was projected by Fangraphs to be the 2nd best bullpen in baseball coming into the season. I talked about all offseason how much talent there was in the pen, and they were okay to start, but then, the starters were just getting knocked out so early in games that the bullpen was just getting so overused that they were struggling. Well, the starters, at least during the 6-game winning streak, had a stretch there where they pitched better. That has not happened in the last 4 games when the Orioles have lost 3 of 4. But they were able to rest up, show their real skill, and now they are really showing out and keeping the Orioles in games. Over the last 10 games, this O's bullpen has a 1.08 ERA. They've allowed just 4 runs over 33 1/3 innings in the last 10 games. That they're just kind of waiting for the offense to pull it back together. The O's did a little bit of it, right? They got a run in the 8th and a run in the 9th on Tuesday to try and creep back into it, but it was not enough against that great Tigers bullpen as they fall 5-3 in game 1 of this series. But that 3rd and final run for the O's was a special one. In the 9th inning, off a solo home run from Jordan Westburg, who after missing more than a month, returned off the injured list into the Orioles lineup on Tuesday. We'll talk about the players the O's got back, and the roster moves they made before Tuesday's game, coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. Well, that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Now, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. And for me, I think the easiest part of it, because I'm not the most financially savvy person in the world, I think it's the all-in-one convenience of Monarch Money. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. It is all in one place. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. So for the Orioles, they dropped game one of the Tigers 5-3 on Tuesday night. And even though that was bad news, they got a lot of good news before Tuesday's games. Got two important starters back off the injured list as they made a flurry of roster moves. Let's start with the biggest one. Jordan Westburg is finally back in the Orioles lineup, and back with a bang as he leads off the bottom of the ninth inning with a solo home run off of Tigers closer Will Vest to cut it to a 5-3 game, hit it over that new wall out in left field. Nice to see him leave the ballpark. He looked good. He looked healthy. He looked good defensively at third. Took some good ABs on Tuesday. All good stuff for Westburg's return to the Oriole lineup, a bat who Tony Mansolino called on Tuesday kind of the glue of this Orioles lineup. So to get him back is huge, gives you a little more balance from a right-handed hitter. All good stuff to have him back. Now, Westburg's been out for a while. He was placed on the injured list back on April 28th with a left hamstring strain. Hasn't played in a game for the Orioles since April 26th. And he was really, after kind of a slow start to the year, he was kind of heating up right before he went on the IL. He was hitting .333 in his last 6 games before hitting the injured list, but overall just wasn't really producing. Had just an 86 WRC plus, meaning he was 14% worse than league average in his 98 plate appearances in the big leagues before he hit the IL. It was a 217 average, 265 on base, 391 slug, just a 5% walk rate, 40% hard hit rate. I mean, he was feeling some soreness. He had that back issue from his mattress in spring training. He was beat up in the opening series in Toronto. He was beat up in that doubleheader he played in against the Tigers earlier this year. Seemed to be playing just a little bit hurt for the entirety of April. I mean, there was an 0 for 30 slump that Westburg had in there at one point in April. You could clearly tell the guy who was an all-star in 2024 was just not himself physically. And the Orioles kind of finally decided he got more beat up. Hey, this is an IL stint. And then unfortunately, as he tried to come back in mid-May, he had a setback. He was, he got shut down from running and baseball activities for a little while longer. And finally, a month after going on the IL, he started playing in AAA rehab games on May 29th. And he dominated down there. He played in 8 games in 31 plate appearances. He hit .393, slugged .750, had a couple of homers, had a crazy good 59% hard hit rate in those AAA games, and really did look healthy in those ABs and playing the field when he was down in Norfolk. So the Orioles said, hey, he's good to go. He is back. And you have to think he'll pretty much be in the lineup every day, mostly at third base with Gunnar at short and Jackson at second. Now, Westburg might get an extra day off or two, maybe an extra appearance at DH or two in these first couple of weeks he's back, just to ease him in and make sure he's okay. But eventually it's just going to be pencil him into third every single day as long as he stays healthy. Now, the Orioles, of course, had to make a roster move to get him here, and it was Emmanuel Rivera who was designated for assignment, taken off the roster to make room for Westburg. Now, Rivera was out of options, so he couldn't just be sent down to Norfolk. Remember, he was great for the Orioles last year. Came over on waivers when both Arias and Westburg was hurt, and Mayo wasn't really producing, and he had a 166 WRC plus in 70-some plate appearances. Made the playoff roster for the Orioles last year. And then, the Orioles kept him. They tendered him a contract over the offseason. But they did DFA him in January. He cleared waivers. He stayed in the organization. He came to spring training as a non-roster invitee and was fighting for an opening day roster spot. Didn't get it. But then once again, Ramon Arias and Jordan Westburg get hurt at the same time, and Kobe Mayo still hadn't pulled it all together. So it was Rivera time again in the big leagues. And he played his first game on April 29th, so the day after Westburg went on the injured list, and he was red hot early. He hit 367 in his first 9 games in the big leagues with the Orioles this year. And it was like, here goes Rivera again. This guy can't stop hitting. And it was like, yeah, we're not really that mad. He's playing over Coby Mayo because Mayo hasn't been producing and Rivera has. But since those first 9 games, Rivera basically did nothing. In the 17 games since, in his 44 plate appearances with the O's, Rivera was hitting just 128 with a 154 slugging percentage. That is a 17 WRC plus. Now, he wasn't striking out. Sunday in Sacramento actually ended a streak of 30 consecutive plate appearances without a strikeout for Rivera, so at least he was putting the ball in play, but a lot of soft contact, not doing any damage, not even hitting for any extra base hits at all. And it got to the point where, hey, he does play a good third base and a pretty solid first base defensively, and he was hitting a little bit, but once he wasn't hitting, and the ceiling's only so high for a guy who's really never hit anywhere else that he's been, whether it be Arizona or Miami with other teams in the big leagues. Yes, the Orioles could have just optioned Coby Mayo and kept Rivera, but I am very happy that they made the Rivera move. It shows that, hey, they're willing, especially with Ryan Mountcastle also on the injured list for a while here, they're willing to give this playing time to Coby Mayo, and that I think is a good sign for his development. Now, Rivera did clear waivers when he was DFA'd in the offseason, so there's a good chance it'll happen again. And I bet P would just accept the AAA assignment, stay in the organization, and with the Orioles' luck, kind of wait for somebody else to get hurt. And especially knowing that Mountcastle's out for a while, just kind of wait for that opportunity. It could come again, and the Orioles would surely call him back up if he stayed in the org and they needed him. But Westburg wasn't the only guy to come off the injured list on Tuesday. Cedric Mullins, who wasn't out for nearly as long, was also activated off the 10-day injured list. Now, he was in the lineup also on Tuesday. Orioles gave him a little bit more of a rest. They had him DH, and he was hitting ninth, did have an 0 for 4 on Tuesday in his first game back. Now, he was placed on the IL on May 30th, so, a month less of IL time for Cedric Mullins with a right hamstring strain. Yes. Mountcastle, Mullins, Westburg, Arias, all have had hamstring strains at some point this year. Now, Mullins last played on May 28th, and that was his first game since May 25th. He was clearly beaten up right before he went on the IL, but Mullins actually never did a rehab stint at all. He took some live ABs over the weekend against Brandon Young, who was rehabbing in Aberdeen as a pitcher coming back, but Mullins never played in a rehab game. Now, Mancelinos did say when Mullins went on the IL that it was a very mild hamstring strain, and he expected it to be pretty close to the minimum IL stint, and I think it was like maybe a day or two over the minimum, so he did get back fairly quickly. Now, overall, the numbers still look good for Mullins this year, 121 WRC+, but it's been very much a tale of 2 months. In March and April, Mullins was an MVP level player. He was hitting 295. He had a 165 WRC+. He had more walks than strikeouts. Then in May, he was terrible. Hit just 194, a 47 WRC+, 30 strikeouts to 3 walks. He had a 1 for 31 stretch at the plate in there at some point in early May. It just kind of turned back around. Now, he was heating up, kind of similar to Westburg. He was heating up right before his injury. In the 8 games before Mullins went on the IL, he was hitting 290 with a 142 WRC+. So just like Westburg, kind of bad timing for him to go on the injured list, but he was clearly banged up, had something going on. Hopefully nice for him to get a couple of weeks off there. And again, he did DH on Tuesday, just get him a little extra rest, but I would think he'll be starting in center field here on Wednesday night. And you can expect him to be back in center field pretty much every day, again, with the other guys, maybe some extra off days or DH days early on. But he did have 8 stolen bases before the hamstring issue, so we'll see how much he keeps running. That'll be something to watch for Mullins, but obviously good, not just for offense, but also how bad the Oriole defense was in the outfield. To get Cowser back last week and now to get Mullins back out there as well, hopefully patrolling center tonight, it's just going to make things way, way better. Because with Mullins DHing, Ryan O'Hearn had to still start in right field on Tuesday, and yeah, again, it's better than Kjerstad, but it's not great out there. Now, speaking of Kjerstad, the corresponding move for Mullins was that Heston Kjerstad was optioned down to AAA Norfolk to make room. And it stinks for Kjerstad that on this struggling team, he's not going to get more runway to kind of figure it out with Major League at-bats, but he truly seems to need a reset in AAA. He's been terrible. 167 plate appearances. Like, he finally got his shot, right? Anthony Santander is gone. You had O'Neill and Cowser and others on the injured list. It was space for Kjerstad to play pretty much every single day, and that is what he did for a while this season. but he hit just 192, 240 on base, 327 slug. It's a 59 WRC plus. He walked just 4% of the time. He struck out 27% of the time. Just not good numbers at all for Kjerstad. And it wasn't just the surface level stats for Heston. I mean, he was completely out of whack. His hard hit rate fell to 41%. That's a little below league average. That was a number that was up in 44, 45%, much well above league average over the last couple of years. I mean, remember, he was up in the 50s in a short time in the big leagues in 2023, just not impacting the baseball at all like he usually does. I've talked about it on the show last week, how much he's chasing outside of the strike zone and making a lot of weak contact. That's turning into a lot of easy outs when he goes out there. It's just not a competitive at-bat right now when Kjerstad, not just against lefties, against anybody that he's facing in terms of major league pitching. And he's really hurting the team because it's not just offense. He has been, this is not conjecture, this is legitimate. With a -7 outs above average, that is dead last in baseball. He has been, according to StatCast, the worst defensive outfielder in the majors this year. So not only is he 40% worse than league average as a hitter, he's the worst defensive outfielder. You put that together, it's a -1.1 Fangraphs WAR, and we're barely into June. He is actively hurting the team when he is out there. So at that point, again, a guy who's been one of your top prospects, number 2 overall pick 5 years ago, I just think a guy who has options, you get healthier in the outfield. It's kind of the perfect timing for a minor league reset. Give him 2 or 3 weeks in Norfolk, give him until July, see what he can do down there, and then we'll reassess depending on what needs the Orioles might have on their roster at that point. And there's still a future spot for him on this team, right? We even saw it with someone like Spencer Torkelson, who homered for the Tigers on Tuesday night, right? He was the number 1 overall pick, taking a pick before Kjerstad in 2020. He kind of came up to the bigs, really struggled for a while, went down to AAA for a while, then got another chance this year. And although he's cooled off in May, had a red-hot April, and looks much more like at least a major league caliber bat this season. There's still plenty of hope for Kjerstad, who's lost so much time with the injuries, the myocarditis that he's dealt with, the concussion last year. Like, there's still plenty of runway for Heston Kjerstad. It's going to be there. There's still a future spot on this team, especially if, Ryan O'Hearn is traded this year or even just leaves in free agency this offseason. That's going to create another opening for Kjerstad on the roster. But he's got to be better. He's going to get another big league chance with the Orioles, but he's got to be better when that comes up. And here's the other issue for him. There are still guys knocking on the door. Dylan Beavers, back from his shoulder injury in AAA, he's got a 144 WRC plus in 208 plate appearances in AAA, and he's a much better outfield defender than Kjerstad is. Heston better watch his back because Beavers could leapfrog him at some point if Dylan does get a shot in the major leagues this year. So just something to watch on that part of the roster. And that looked like that was going to be the 2 main roster moves. They were made early in the afternoon. And then literally 2 minutes before first pitch on Tuesday, the Orioles made one more move. Kind of surprisingly, placing Jorge Mateo on the 10-day injured list with what the Orioles are calling left elbow inflammation. Now, the IL stint is retroactive to June 7th, so he could be back in a week if he's okay, but there is no timetable for him to return right now. Mateo, who, remember back about a week and a half ago, he ran into Heston Kjerstad in the outfield in that weird play against the White Sox where Kjerstad actually caught the ball, but Mateo was down for a while and then stayed in the game. That was the same elbow he banged, which he had surgically repaired last season that kept him out for the final 2+ months of last year. And he ended up coming back for opening day, but his opening day was very much in question this year because of that elbow surgery. The left elbow inflammation, that is the same elbow. And Mateo said on Tuesday that the elbow's kind of been off and on sore since he ran into Kjerstad about a week and a half ago. And you add that to the fact that he's not really helping the team, right? He's got a 44 WRC plus in his 65 big league plate appearances. He's not playing all that much. He's really not doing much to help the team. So the O's are going to put him on the shelf and hope that inflammation calms down on the elbow. So to take his place on the roster, Luis Vazquez is up with the Orioles for the first time. Vazquez, who had a cup of coffee last year with the Chicago Cubs and then was placed on waivers. The Orioles claimed him this offseason, brought him into camp, and Vazquez was actually the guy I thought was going to make the team when we all figured that Mateo was going to begin the year on the injured list because of the elbow. Like, everything Elias and Hyde had said in spring training was that Mateo is going to need at least a little bit of IL time before his season starts. And then miraculously, Mateo was healthy and on the opening day roster. And so that spot for Vazquez went away, and he began the year in AAA Norfolk. Now, he was not on the 40-man, but there was space there, so they were able to place him on the 40-man roster. But for Vazquez, this is a guy, I really liked his game. He had a great spring training. He's an incredible defender, and he plays everywhere. He's made 9 starts at second base, 6 at third base, 18 at shortstop, and 1 in left field in Norfolk this year. He's a good defender all over the diamond. Not a whole lot of power, kind of got a flatter, more line drive, ground ball swing, but at 147 plate appearances for Vasquez with the Tides this year, hitting 280, 345 on base, 447 slug. It's a 114 WRC plus, walks a little bit, doesn't strike out a lot, hits the ball fairly hard. Like, if you watch him play, the swing is similar and the style of play is similar. He's a very similar player to Joey Ortiz. Now, Ortiz is just a more talented version of Luis Vasquez, but I really like Vasquez's game. I'm not sure how much he's going to play while he's up here, but he is a nice utility bench piece to have on the roster. So with all those roster moves, the question is, how's this lineup going to kind of shake out as the Orioles have gotten to a much healthier point now with Westburg and Cowser and Mullins and Laureano back on this team? We'll talk about that to finish off the show coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's at supplyhouse.com. So to finish things up on today's episode, I wanted to talk about how the Orioles fit in these pieces that they have gotten back from the injured list. They just got Laureano and Cowser back. Now they have Mullins and Westburg back. And honestly, Tyler O'Neill and Gary Sanchez are on the way as well. So for catcher, obviously we're going to see mostly Adley Rutschman. Maverick Handley will handle the backup responsibilities. He'll start on Sundays, day games after night games. Maybe Adley needs a day. Adley's still going to DH a lot of the days that Handley will catch. And Gary Sanchez is playing rehab games in AAA. The word is that either later this homestand or sometime next week when the Orioles go back on the road, Sanchez will return. Handley will go down to AAA, and Sanchez will kind of assume that same role as the backup catcher. In the infield, once they deem he's fully kind of good and ready to go, I think we're going to see Westburg at third, Henderson at short, Holiday at second, pretty much every day for the Orioles. You'll have Ramon Arias kind of jump in there when anyone needs a breather, and then you split first base and DH between Ryan O'Hearn and Kobe Mayo. And you might see a little bit of Westburg DHing early on, or we saw Mullins DH to get a day. And, at that point, if Westburg DHs, you'll see Arias over at third base. But we also did see Ramon Arias pinch hit for Kobe Mayo in a 5-3 game against a righty in the bottom of the ninth on Tuesday. So that's something to think about. The Orioles, clearly right now, as a big leaguer, Ramon Arias is a better hitter than Kobe Mayo, but you also want Mayo to get that runway as a player. So I think there will be some Arias eating into like the potential everyday playing time for Kobe Mayo, because Arias has been a good bat this year and you want to keep him in the lineup on and off. But even against lefties, like Holiday and O'Hearn should be fully in there against lefties. You can maybe sit Mayo against some of the righties, and that's how you get Arias in there, whether as the DH or the third baseman. And then they now have Luis Vasquez in there kind of in case of emergency. I doubt he's going to start more than maybe once in the next couple of weeks in that Oriole order. In the outfield, for now, I think you're going to see Cowser in left, Mullins in center, and Ramon Laureano in right field most days. Dylan Carlson, who stays around for now with Kjerstad going to AAA. And again, I think that was the right decision. Carlson's been producing, Kjerstad is not, so Dylan Carlson stays. Carlson kind of becomes your floating fourth outfielder. He can come in for defense if you need to, although defensively, Laureano, Cowser, Mullins is pretty good. Carlson is a better defensive outfielder than Laureano, but it's not like Laureano is bad, so they won't make that move a ton. But, he gives you something to look at. He gives you a lefty bat, or at least a switch hitter, with Laureano being a righty. And on the flip side, Cowser and Mullins are lefties, but Carlson's a switch hitter who actually hits better from the right side. So he'll get some starts, give some guys some rest. And, I could see Carlson maybe playing over Cowser or Mullins a few times against some lefties if they struggle there. But I think Carlson's mostly going to be about giving other guys some days off. And then we won't see Mateo in the outfield for a little bit with him going on the IL. O'Hearn played right field Tuesday because they wanted Mullins to DH his first game back. Again, hopefully Mullins is back out there in the outfield tonight, which means with Carlson becoming the fourth outfielder, you won't see a ton of O'Hearn in the outfield. He's still on this roster makeup right here, is kind of the de facto fifth outfielder. So if they needed to put him out there, that would be kind of the next guy they went to. But I think with these four good defensive outfielders they have now, after Tuesday, you're not going to see a lot of O'Hearn starting in the outfield. Now, things might get a little more complicated, not for Gary Sanchez. That'll be easy, backup catcher. But when Tyler O'Neill does return, because he is also playing in rehab games in AAA right now. The Orioles also said for O'Neill, expecting either this weekend or early next week, that he'll be off the injured list. They could send Kobe Mayo down and then kind of rotate O'Neill between outfield and DH. But you also have now Luis Vasquez here, who may not play much and could easily also just be sent down to AAA so you can keep Mayo and O'Neill. It's going to be weird on the roster. Like, how do you fit in all those guys between Mayo and O'Neill and O'Hearn and all your guys in the outfield? So there's going to be some rotation, and O'Neill's not going to play every day. You want to do your best to try and keep him healthy because he's been injured a lot. He's already been injured on the IL twice so far this season, so he will not be an everyday insert, which gives Mayo the ability to play if they keep him here. But I'll be intrigued to see what move they make when O'Neill comes back. We'll talk about that when it does happen later this week. But that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and follow the show wherever you listen. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. It really helps out the pod. We're also here on YouTube. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the Locked On Orioles YouTube channel. If you want to chat about the Orioles, ask mailbag questions, whatever it may be, you can always email me, lockedonorioles@gmail.com. Game 2 between the Orioles and the Tigers comes up tonight, 6:35 p.m. on MASN 2. Zach Eflin goes for the Orioles against Casey Mize, the right-hander, former number 1 overall pick in 2018. He's been pretty incredible this year. He has posted a 2.91 ERA in 10 starts, but he has been a little bit shaky his last couple times out. Maybe the Orioles can get to him on Wednesday. And then I'll be back on Thursday recapping game 2 between the O's and Detroit, getting you any other Orioles news and notes that you may need. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.